Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Magic Mics, proudly sponsored by CoolSomething.com, mana traders, as well as Twitch subs and Patreon supporters just like you. My name is Evan Irwin, and get started each week by saying hello to my two co-hosts, Power Dragon.
What's up, everybody? And this week we had piles of news. We might have to just race through this episode. There's a lot.
Yeah.
It's kind of a bit. Ruben Bressler.
Yeah, for once in our lives, we actually aren't going to have to vamp. We actually might have to move fast. So get started.
Nice. Power Dragon might want to slide, a little bit to your left there. But yeah, if you missed that pre-show where we talk about my horrible decision to download and install Civilization 6, just one more turn, y'all. Just one more turn.
You know, it was a good decision. Just bad for your productivity.
Just bad for the productivity. I swear. I need to just one more turn. Now, listen, Patreon subs to this channel can access that stuff. And we kick it off with our first pick on our promo code reminder. Visit CoolStuffInc.com. Right there. Use promo code MagicMics to save 5% off anything in the store. As many times as you want, you can run this back. No problem. Every single time, let them know who sent you. It helps us. It helps you. Everybody wins. Promo code MagicMics there at CoolStuffInc.com. And support your favorite streamer with your suggestions into the show to see who we rate tonight on Twitch. Thanks for that sponsor. Where you can find cool stuff in stock every day. Use promo code MagicMics. Just do it. Just do it. Now, we'll move on here to the first pick. So, for those who weren't able to go to Pro Tour Amsterdam or Pro Tour Magic or MagicCon Amsterdam that featured Pro Tour or whatever, if you weren't able to go, there was coverage of the event all weekend long. And first of all, Frank Carson on the desk is like A+. Like, can we get Frank Carson all the time? Because he's so good at explaining all of the math, really, and all of the matchups and so on. He's great at it. But the problem was, it was one of the most broken, busted PTs I've ever seen. And no matter how you can say the Hogak took over, Fairies took over, whatever, Splinter Twin took over, it doesn't matter because traditionally, even if you had a busted deck at the Pro Tour, it didn't win, or it didn't always win. Like, I might have won once with Splinter Twin. But, Hogak didn't win the big Hogak Pro Tour. And so, like, what's up with that? Well, here's Nadu's chance. And Nadu is the broken bird from Modern Horizons 3 that provides really dumb triggers. And they had to make this silly token that went in the middle of coverage so they could keep track of the 0, the first, and the second time that something had been targeted and have them on different sides of the table. And it was kind of nuts. And most of the event, particularly at the end of it, I'm not kidding you, was a lot of, do you have it? You've got it. No, you've got it. No, wait, I've got this. And like, then they have it. And then it's like 5 to 7 minutes of dirtling. And then somebody wins. And it was that all weekend long. And
I mean, it was basically a combo deck with creatures instead, is what it was. Like, we didn't really say that, but it's really the situation you have when it's two combo decks playing a game of chicken,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so,
the Nadu deck, as it ended up getting built and created, the Bant Nadu deck, and then the 4-color Nadu deck to a lesser extent, but really that 3-color Bant Nadu deck is very similar to decks we've seen in the past that either used, this one did use Court of Calling, right, but Birthing Pod, Court of Calling, what we affectionately call Creature Toolbox.
Right.
And this was just another iteration of a Creature Toolbox deck. This one just so happened to have a value engine attached to its combo that could end the game or just continue amassing combo. In many ways, rather than comparing it to, for example, like the Kitchen Finks three creature combo deck, I think of it more like Elves in Old Modern, because even if you fizzle, even if you don't completely combo off, you still end your turn with a handful of cards and a massive board state. Like, your fail state is still incredibly powerful with the deck. So it is not horrifically surprising, given that they ended up on this shell that was so consistent and able to get the pieces that they needed together, that we ended up with something quite so powerful. Are there ways to combat this? Of course there are. We've got Collector Oof, we've got Suppression Field. Like, there's lots of stuff that can be done to try to interact with Nadu, but even if you do that, you're warping the metagame in the way that Affinity once warped the metagame. You are playing main deck Molder Slugs against Affinity. We don't want to be playing in a world where our entire life is, half the decks we play against are Nadu. And that is what we saw at the end of the tournament, at the very least. Something like a quarter or a third of the decks had Nadu, I think, in them to start the tournament. And then, of course, the top 4 was all Nadu.
And 5 of the top 8. And it had a
60%,
almost 60% win rate. And, it's funny because right before the event, basically there were 2 big combo decks. There was Nadu and there was Storm. And the Storm deck was like, it's what John Finkel played, or what LSV played, a whole bunch of them played. And it's like, oh man, is that Storm deck, even better than we thought it was or whatever? Well, it ain't faster than Nadu, so no. And that's
but
kind of what happened.
Even looking through it, just how much Modern Horizons 3 left its stamp on the decks in this tournament. Like, there was Boros Energy, there was the black Necro Dominance, Grief, whatever decks. That was a thing.
Yep.
Like, pretty much all of the best decks were playing a significant number of cards for Modern Horizons 3.
Yeah.
And I think that's almost the bigger story as a whole, of just like, yeah, Modern isn't really what people wanted it initially to be anymore, right? Like, those cards you like playing from, hell, I don't know, was it 18 years ago now? 15 years ago? Like, a lot of those, like, if you had a deck, I have a deck that I just sitting in a box that's been sitting there since like 2018, right? A Jund deck. That thing would be crap today, even though it's full of great cards.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's just what Modern's become now.
Well, a few things. One, we got to remember, Modern Horizons 2 was the best selling set ever.
Sure.
It beat every metric. They had to reprint it 1 million times. Modern Horizons 3 is selling like hotcakes. And it's because they're literally pushed the set, right? And so you've got, Modern is now, and I didn't really say this for the first 2 sets, but I think with the third set, we've really cemented the fact that it is Modern Horizons constructed for the vast majority of it. It's Modern Horizon constructed / cards from all of those years of cards that may have some really cool, interesting interaction with the new Modern Horizons cards. And that's kind of what we've been stuck with for a hot minute. And it's tough.
It is also, so I have 2 thoughts. And the first is, Nadu as a card, clearly now, given this result, and it's also its popularity in CEDH, and just sort of like, you look at it now and you go, it isn't obviously too powerful in one spot, but it is a little too powerful in 5 spots, right? Like, it shouldn't trigger twice a turn. It should draw the card instead of putting the card in. The land should come into play tapped.
Yes.
It should have 3 toughness, right? Like, all of these sort of stopgaps that we can now, hindsight is 2020, look back at.
Right.
But we still have 2020 in our hindsight, and so now we look at it and we go, there's no, like, can we fix this card, or is this another Oko that Evan will have burning a hole in his account and complain about in the future?
I can't ever play it. Well, now I can't, thankfully. So, but for a very long time, I could do absolutely nothing with it. But yeah, I mean, and again, so here we are, right? Here we are, and not just here we are. This is literally the best it has ever been in terms of a new card showed up and ran the event. Just, I mean, right in the ground. Everyone who played it did well. That it was a majority of the top 8. It was the entire top 4, the entire finals. What are they going to do? And I'm telling you, we can run this line all the way back to Ice Age, all the way back to Necropotence. They didn't ban Necropotence immediately. They banned stuff around it. And they didn't ban Survival of the Fittest immediately. They banned stuff around it. Like, and at some point, you're like, hey, they didn't ban Hogak immediately. They banned Bridge from Below. And then the people were like, we don't even need Bridge from Below, lol. Then they banned Golgari Grave Troll. And it's like, look, the problem is the problem. And I know it's fun and cool and shiny. And Lord knows the last thing Wizards wants to do is hurt sales. I get it. But at some point, you have to recognize that, like, it was a bridge too far. And the game is worse for having that card be legal versus like trying to dance around it. I don't want to dance around this card for years, just like, Birthing Pod or whatever. Just get rid of it. Just let it go.
Yeah, I would say banning Nadu's not going to hurt sales at this point.
Okay. Like, I hope not.
People buying it aren't necessarily the Nadu chasers, I guess. Like that's not what they're going into those packs for. So it's fine. Hell, they could reinstitute for a temporary time for 6 months, like the redemption thing they did the one time. Like they banned a thing, you can send it in and get a booster pack or whatever it is they want to do, right?
It's one way to do it. I mean,
Sure.
you know, ultimately, you don't necessarily want the play experience of somebody buying a pack and they open it up and they got a cool that cool version of Nadu or whatever, and like, oh, that card's really neat. It looks really fun, and they're like, yeah, that's banned. You can't play it, and you're like, oh,
Well, you just can't play it in modern, though.
In modern,
Right.
exactly.
Like you can play it in other
still,
stuff.
You can still play it as your commander, which is by far the most popular format.
for now.
Well, for now, sure.
I will say
Just
right
saying.
now in Commander, from what we've seen and what we've tested, it's not crazy dominant. The downside is that it's just a long turn with lots of record keeping and stuff, but doesn't necessarily lead to the game ending.
There you
So,
go.
like, not bad enough to get rid of it, more of just a nuisance. And we'll see if people just like self regulate on the card because they don't want to deal with it.
Yeah. So there's a MTGO creator thing that's happening. The MTGO Creator Showdown on July 13th, and they are already pre-banning Nadu. Now that doesn't say Wizards is going to do anything official, but for that event, we're not going to have to watch 1,000 triggers versus 1,000 triggers, the format. And to know, while the format of the event was broken, the coverage was great. Frank Karsten killed it. Maria and everybody at the desk, high five. Y'all did a good job with the broken event that you were given to showcase, which was unfortunate.
You know, there's a very smart thing by doing this with the Creator Showcase, is that you can decide if Nadu not being around causes another problem.
I mean, you get
Right?
to see
But
the pendulum
before you
swing
announce
back to
any
Necro
bannings,
dominance, right?
exactly. You can go, all right, are the next best decks too good or are they fine, balanced against each other, whatever, that we don't care, right? But if something else gets supremely elevated because Nadu's not around, then you can go ahead and just 2 birds, 1 stone on the next announcement.
And, you know, it was nice to have a European Pro Tour that I could wake up and the draft rounds were about over. And I was like, oh, cool.
Dude, tell me about it.
I got to see the cool sweet modern rounds. It was neat. It was fun. And I was like, oh, damn, this format's broken. Dang it.
Yeah.
But on Sunday, and I think it was before top 4 or before the finals. I can't remember
I think
exactly.
before the top 8.
Before the top 8, was it?
Yeah.
Maybe. Either way, during the top 8, you know, Sunday experience, they had a point where they were like, hey, we're going to make a special announcement about organized play from Huey Jensen and, you know, William Jensen. And he came out, and I was not really prepared for the amount of emotion that was going on there. And I'm like, what is happening? And he started talking a bit about, you know, the history of the Pro Tour and the history of the game. And, you know, and he kind of got around to Kai Budde and how, like, Kai was, you know, the number 1 Sunday menace for a very long time. The only person who's ever won 4 Pro Tours in a row, as I recall, and is just one of the greatest players ever. And not only is he a great player, he's a really cool guy to hang out, talk to, discuss things with, not just Magic, you know, and isn't sort of one of those who will only talk about Magic. Also, funny guy, just great to hang around. Talked about how he was a friend with him for so long, and then kind of dropped the emotional bombshell that Kai, unfortunately, has been suffering from cancer. And F cancer, by the way. And as a result, the cancer, not just that he has it, but it's also been kind of progressing. It's getting a little worse. And they feel like, you know, we're at a point where he might have only so many events left, for example. And so they are going to rename the Player of the Year award to the Kai Budde Player of the Year award, which I thought was incredible. And the fact that, like, I've known Kai for a very long time. I've interviewed him. I've seen him at events. I've hung out with him, you know, many, many times in the past. I was getting super emotional and overclamped about it, and so was the coverage team, and it was a whole thing, but it was just incredibly beautiful. And given the fact that Wizards often doesn't sort of like to put their players into Magic things, like player names into official Magic things, you know, they'll change the picture of the invitational list or whatever when they get reprinted and so on. To see them really just, you know, say, look, this is for forever. This is where our Player of the Year is going to be this. Because Kai was just a force to be reckoned with. And when you started playing, even me back in the 90s, the first 2 names I ever heard of Pro Magic was John Finkel and Kai Budde. And that was just the 2 towers of great Magic playing. And it was just incredible and emotional, and I absolutely loved it.
I mean, I think this is it's a nice, very professional, like heartfelt decision.
Right.
So I want to say that up front. But it's also a safe decision for Wizards because Kai, at this point, we have a track record of who he is.
Right.
You know what I mean? And unfortunately, not to be crass here, but like he's not gonna be with us soon. So there's not like this can be tarnished that we're gonna turn up something like you know what I mean? It is what it is. So like this is a good honor to have for Kai, and I think everybody was super responsive in a positive way to it. Plus, I think, the Magic community being older in general, we kind of all have experienced somebody dealing with cancer at this point, it feels like. So
Yep.
it's all very relatable for a lot of people. So yeah, very cool move by Wizards for sure.
It is a unfortunate situation, but it is lucky in some ways that we get to have this opportunity, because most of the time you name stuff posthumously. You don't have the chance to give the credit when it's due while the person is here with us. You have the memorial awards, you have the posthumous awards, but sometimes you don't get the opportunity to say thank you with the people there. I don't know what Kai's prognosis is. I don't know what the details are, and I don't need to know what the details are. The look on Huey's face is all we really needed to know. If you haven't watched the 7.5, 8 minute clip of Huey's speech followed by Kai's brief remarks afterwards, you should go watch it if you're a fan of Magic, even if you're not a historian of Magic. Kai is an extremely sweet, smart, kind man who has time for everyone. I have a lot of great experiences with Kai myself, having been able to report on many of his tournaments, and live in a house with him, live in a castle with him for a week. I went shopping. Actually, that's the best Kai story I have. So we had to go. We were in Ireland for Pro Tour Theros, and it was 13 of the best Magic players on the planet, plus Jeremy Knoll and myself. And the two sweet old people who owned the castle, and it was great. And but when you live in a castle, when you're living in an Airbnb, you got to go shopping.
Right.
And so Kai was like, "I'll go shopping," and so it was me, Gabe, Nassif, and Kai went shopping. And Kai's a cook. Kai likes to cook and make food for people. And so we're comparing vegetables and looking at the quality of the meat and like looking at all the stuff. And it's just us hanging out. And it's me and two of the at the time, three best Magic players of all time.
Oh yeah.
Funny. He's kind. He's German, so he's got that sort of like brevity to him.
Right.
And I'm excited that we get to have the opportunity to thank him for his greatness.
Yeah. I mean, the idea that, he can have that kind of longevity, the idea that we can celebrate him now, which was brilliant. I just thought was great, and at the same time, I don't want, for example, other people like Mark Rosewater to go away, for us to have maybe a design of the year, for example, or a design thing that we're able to, kind of look at that is celebrated in some way, or maybe the set of the year or something, just a little bit more self-congratulatory. I know it's kind of weird, and
Yeah.
but I feel like Wizards just tries to not do that. You know what I mean? Where they're like, we don't want to call attention to how much, what went well and what didn't go so well or whatever. And Rosewater kind of bucks that trend, which is nice. But yeah, I just
I also want to let it be known that Kai is only, I believe, like 42.
He's like 40. He's in his mid to early 40s.
Yeah, so it's not like he's one of the oldest guys running around. Like, I mean, he's still, sadly, because of cancer, where he's going to lose probably 25, 30 years he had ahead of him, and that's rough.
And they say like don't meet your heroes, but I got to meet one, and he's awesome. Like he really was. And not all the people
You should meet Kai.
Yeah, who you feel you put up on those pedestals are worth kind of hanging out with. Kai was a dude and is a dude who's worth hanging out with and getting to know and talk to, and it was just an absolute joy, and tears were shed, and Kai's great, and I love it and I also hate it, but I can still love it at the same time. And of course, because Kai Budde is Kai Budde, he won the PTQ on Sunday because Kai does not lose on Sundays.
On the way out, you got to get a one or two more.
Yeah, man.
Just incredible. I believe it was like Brad Nelson who beat Kai on Sunday, and it was like a big, huge thing. So it was like Pro Tour Amsterdam 2011 or something. And that was a big deal, which was incredible. But let's move on here out of the first pick to gather the townsfolk. Thanks to our sponsor, Mana Traders, the best tool to enhance your Magic Online experience. Use the code MagicMikes_8N48 November 4 for 10% off your next subscription with Mana Traders. Tell them we sent you. We appreciate them sponsoring the show. All right. So Wizards got a chance to announce some new things and have a preview panel, which I thought was pretty rad. And everything old is new again, as it always is. And there's going to be a new set on November 15th that will be the foundation for Magic players. The design philosophy was, what would a set simply called Magic the Gathering look like? And they're calling it Magic the Gathering Foundations. Now, here's one thing. It's going to have play boosters, collector boosters, along with a big beginner box and a starter kit, all that good stuff, which is some of that's new, which is neat. But the kicker is that it is going to be standard legal through at least 2029. That's 5 years in the future. Now, look, when it first shows up, you're going to have those collector boosters, and those are going to dry up probably fairly quickly. Right? Yeah. It's going to have play boosters, so you can draft it and you can play steel with it, and that's cool, right? But what you're trying to tell me is that this product is going to be sold for 5 years? Like, do you trying to tell retailers that 4 years from now you're going to sell any of these boosters? I mean,
I would venture to guess it's really going to be printed for probably 3 years, and then whatever's in the distribution chain is going to be what it is.
As I understand it, they're taking kind of notes from Hearthstone that has like a core set. And the cards that are just kind of legal all the time, so you can, bank on them. And they showcased a few Day of Judgment, for example, always being there. A new Glorious Anthem for a green and a white mana, I thought was also really interesting. But yeah, this is
Llanowar Elves.
Llanowar
forever.
From now until the next 5 years, every Magic designer has to say you can get 3 mana on turn 2 with a green deck. Yep. And that was something they got rid of Llanowar Elves exactly for that reason.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a couple of things about the set, though, that I tried to get in the mindset of, like, why do they want this to exist, right? There is the aspect of some people get busy with life or whatever, and, you come back, you want to play Standard, but some of your favorite cards or deck or whatever is rotated out. Like, in a 5-year stretch, you can come back, and some reasonable portion of your cards will still be available to play with. And that's actually kind of cool.
Yeah.
Depending on what percentages they build the set with, whether it's 80% old cards, 20% new cards, whatever, if you're coming back to the game, there will be things that are familiar. Like we're talking about, like the Llanowar Elves and Day of Judgment, whatever. Right. So that's also appealing, right? You're not building with things that are all brand new and you have to learn. And, you take some of the pressure and the concern away. The other thing that I was able to find out is that with this, they are wanting to treat this like a full-on starter product as a jumping on point. So I believe they're supposed to also be the, what do we call the little like shuffle up packs or whatever those things were. Jumpstart supposed to be part of this. Mm-hmm. And they're bringing back the 30 card starter decks that they used to give to retailers to teach new people with or whatever.
Yes, the welcome decks.
Those are supposed to be coming back as well. So they are putting the full court press behind this to say, like, hey, we want this to be an introductory product. We want people to be comfortable. We want an easy on-ramp. And they're giving it every opportunity to succeed in the long run. It's a little weird with the messaging being like, we moved from 2-year to 3-year standard. Now we have a thing that's a 5-year thing in standard. Like, we'll have to work past that. But if it does work, it's at least a neat idea.
I mean, Omniscience is going to be in standard for 5 years. So we have an upper end, and it's right there.
F that card.
Yeah, Anthem of Champions is a brand new card, but also a very simple, straightforward, cool riff on something that just in today's Magic, doesn't really cost 3 mana. and we don't want to have it cost 2 white. That's a Crusade problem. But we can have it cost green white. A, it's thematic for green and white and what they do. B, it's kind of pushed in that way that's exciting, and C, it's a really cool, straightforward effect everybody understands. So that's really rad. I don't know. I don't know how to feel exactly about this product because, when it's so new and different, we know core sets, right? But we don't know core sets that just like keep going.
Yeah.
That's going to be weird.
My thought is I want a couple of chunks of the collector's boosters. Because if things gonna be around standard legal 5 years and people are gonna be playing with this and they're gonna be looking for rare versions on the stuff that may not exist, I'm probably gonna get a couple boxes of it. But other than that, I'll just play with them because they're around,
Yeah, the 9 Lives Familiar is here, which is super cute.
That thing's awesome. I love that thing's design.
I think it's neat. The card from Phyrexia that deals damage when counters are put on stuff. Remember that one? All will be one. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes.
Like this and any sack
That's pretty
outlet
good.
is an insta win, which I thought was kind of rad. But yeah, this is just going to be a whole strange thing that we get to figure out. There's going to be 5 planeswalkers in it, more than likely very standard versions of Jason friends, I'm guessing. Maybe Garrick will come back.
I was going to say, we just throw back the original 5 and put them in there.
Yeah, exactly. So, Duskmourn. Duskmourn got a lot of highlights. Why? Because Bloomburrow doesn't really need them. Bloomburrow is primed to explode. Bloomburrow already has fantastic pre-sales, and we've barely seen the set at all.
And to be fair, we're right around the corner from previews for Bloomburrow anyway.
They start next Tuesday. Yeah. So, as they do. But there's already some controversy with Duskmourn, House of Horror, because there's definitely a motif of the 80s, and one of the big motifs of those 80s are television sets and things that kind of move through television and television type waves and so on. And for what it's worth, for someone who has been kind of trepidatious about this product and said that they're not going to go like as far as they need to, it's going to be more Ghostbusters than it is like Poltergeist or whatever.
Sure.
They're going pretty far, in my opinion. Like they've gone to creepy, weird, kind of gross stuff, which is nice and interesting. Duskmourn itself, a love letter to modern horror. The lore around this is awesome. There's a demon who was basically turned into kind of a house, got stuck there, just kind of kept growing and absorbing things, and spirits are pushed out through the wall slats as it keeps moving and growing. Some people have said that the demon itself is Yawgmoth with just a different name. Who knows? But now that the omen paths are happening, it used to be very difficult to get people into this haunted house plane, but now it's super easy. So we're seeing everybody show up and do crazy stuff.
That's very cool.
Yeah, and it looks brilliant and scary and weird.
There's so many. I mean, it harkens back to what Magic has been doing best since Innistrad and before, which is to take the genre and turn it into Magic and make it their own. Outlaws at Thunder Junction, Murders at Karlov Manor. These are the sets that we're like, these are love letters to genres. And this one is the most modern inspired of those genres. But we're still getting the flavor of the old, somewhat old stories of the House on Haunted Hill, and sort of some of those callbacks as well, and like creepy, like campfire stories.
Yeah, like Puppet Master and like some of those weird, freaky gremlins, for example. They're also going to have a new card type, which, for what it's worth, I think it's going to be a battle, but they're room cards. And they appear to be double-faced in some nature, because we see here Dollmaker Shop / Porcelain Gallery. They're not willing to show us those yet. Whatever room cards is and how they work, obviously we'll figure that out. But remember, there was Battle Siege. There could be Battle Room. And maybe that's how that works. I don't know. We'll see.
I like that.
Yeah. But they were showing some really cool, just neat stuff. Like, I want to know how the Painter Studio turns into the Defaced Gallery. Like, that sounds awesome.
I just realized Duskmourn pre-releases are going to be awesome for me, because I either go 0-1 or I win the tournament.
Okay.
Why?
Well, because that's what happens to the black guy in every horror thing.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
I see.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
sick.
yeah.
That's sick.
You want to write the joke? No, that was actually insane. That was great.
That was actually
really
pretty good. And there's going
I'm
to
the-
be
I'm always-
thought of that.
I'm usually the guy that would die at the end of Act 1 to let people know that there is a monster.
Fair.
Is what I would be in the horror movie.
Yeah, I would be the guy that comes in at the very last scene to be like, "What the hell happened here, y'all?" You know, and I'm just like, "What's going? I don't get it. Why is that over there
Perfect.
smoking?" You know.
My problem is you'd have trouble getting me into the haunted house in the first place.
Right.
Like, I remember watching, what was it, like the Amityville Horror where the house was talking to the people? Like, I literally told people, like, the house could have my furniture. I don't care. Like,
Yeah.
you're like, well, what if
I
your
don't-
wife's in there? Like, she knows the drill. She's right behind me. Like, we are not, like,
Yeah.
the house is talking. I'm out.
We're leaving. Yep.
And then the flip side is like, wow, you actually own your own house.
Yeah, exactly.
It's true in this economy.
Yeah.
Well, look, things like ley lines are coming back, which I thought was neat. Ley line of hope they got to show off.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Ley line of hope, if it starts in your opening hand, you can start with it on the battlefield. If you were to gain life, you gain 1+ instead. And as long as you have 7 life more than your starting life total, creatures you control get +2/+2, which is a hell of a bump. And the angel decks or whatever that gain life in older formats say hello, which should be fun. There's going to be some amount of UFOs, right? Or whatever that means. And here's a big one. The haunted screen, where we see what is arguably a television.
Yeah.
And here comes the controversy of how dare you have televisions in Magic? And is this a bridge too far? And we can't have guns, but we can have this.
Here's the thing, though, right? Like, if we just made this look like an is-it pile of parts, and we made instead of having a cathode ray tube, there's like a crystal ball or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing. Like, but literally, but it looks different, so it's bad. Like, especially if we're doing this for one set and then we're bouncing out. Like, who cares? It's not that big a deal.
I agree.
Yeah, I think that ultimately it's the fact that we went through Neon Dynasty, and because that had the cool Japanese anime, so-and-so vibes that no one cared.
That had electric swords, it had motorcycles, it had like you name it.
Like
It was
neon
all-
signs. Like,
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah.
Also, like, why are we being so precious about where we draw the line? For a couple reasons. One, we have Transformers, so like, calm down.
Sure.
2, where is it written that high fantasy can only exist before the year 900 AD in our timeline? Right? Like,
I mean, or if you're planeswalking, who's not to say there's not a more advanced plane?
right.
I mean, look, as long as we're not making like VCR tokens with like little Be Kind Rewind counters.
Uh-huh.
To be fair,
incredible.
I-
Oh
I
man, Be
kinda
Kind
want
Rewind,
those.
extra turn card.
That'd be kind of awesome.
That'd be kind of nuts. But yeah, it'd be sweet. I think it's great. Yes, of course, they're going to have the unsettling twins, which is great. All the nods as they can. There's one to They Live, which has like a guy in his sunglasses showing a monster through the sunglasses, which was cool. Again, I think there are some very Ghostbuster-like stuff, with the
Yeah, but there needs to be some. I
the
mean,
ghost vacuum, for example,
yeah,
right here,
that's a fair trope.
which I think is fine, not a big deal. And yeah,
Though I still think Luigi did it better.
and that's fair. But I thought it was cool. Cursed Recording is an interesting artifact that lets you copy instants and sorcery spells because again, they're just pushing the forks. We just keep pushing fork effects for as long as we can because they're silly. But look, Chainsaw is here, and Chainsaw through the television with the Texas Chainsaw iconic pose is kind of awesome. I'm
Yeah,
I
have no
think
issues with it.
objectively this is cool as hell.
Yeah, it's fine.
And people are like, this is going to kill Magic. Bruh,
I mean, I haven't seen that.
I've seen it, and it's
All
silly,
right.
and y'all are
Well,
killing
that's-
me.
Can we go through the
Silly.
list of like the 36 things that were already going to kill Magic?
We don't
Right.
have time. We don't have time. All right, I do want to call out this card. All right, I got to call. This is one of the coolest damn cards I've seen in years. Come Back Wrong is amazing. This is one of the coolest damn spells I've seen, again, long time. Black and 2 generic mana, 3 mana for a rare sorcery. Destroy target creature. If a creature card is put into a graveyard this way, return it to the battlefield under your control, sack it at the beginning of your next end step. Nice Atraxa. I'll get one, thanks. I'll get my triggers, and then you'll not only not have that anymore, I'll get all those goodies too.
I get the benefit.
Yeah, it's just beautiful. And so many into the battlefield abilities these days to get the immediate value, to get rid of their thing, for you to get the value instead. Like, this
Even
is gorgeous.
creepier about this card is there's actually two versions, one that has the shadowy figure in the back and one that doesn't.
Or
And I don't know if that's
Or
just because
does
the
it?
card has come back wrong,
Yeah.
or if
I
it's
mean-
something that's just planted throughout the set that we don't know about yet.
Look, they did that Murders at Karlov Manor thing where they had like something was colored different between two versions, but they didn't mark it on the card anywhere else.
Yeah, that was annoying.
That was terrible. Please don't do that again. If that's what's happening here, just have an
No.
A and B after it, please.
These
I beg
actually
you.
have different set numbers. I've actually seen the two versions and they
Oh
had
my
two
God.
different numbers on them.
Thank you, Wizards, because Lord
Yeah.
Almighty, that was
Right.
horrible.
Come back wrong is also interesting because you can just target your own creature, right? Like,
Yeah.
So I can play Atraxa, attack with it, target my own Atraxa with come back wrong, do it again.
Do it again. I love it. It's not destroy target creature your opponent controls. Like, even then,
Yeah.
they took away anything that could be like negative about this. And it's all upside and it's all fun. And I don't care if we have a television border on some cards. They're going to be super freaking rad, which I thought was great. So, and probably should touch on the Wandering Rescuer. This is the sick mythic that they previewed for the set because the Wandering Emperor is leaving us. And this thing is coming to showcase instead for 2 white, 3 generic mana. It's a 3/4 mythic legendary human samurai noble. This is the Wandering Emperor without her spark, as it's broken spark as the water stamp there, the watermark. So for a 5 mana 3/4, she has Flash and Convoke and Double Strike, and other tapped creatures you control have hexproof. So the cards to help cast her, you can't target them at that point if they're trying to kill one, for example. And it's a 3/4 Flash Double Strike on top of it. This card is going to make big waves the instant it sees print.
Absolutely. Boros Convoke is already a player in Pioneer. And giving us another 5-drop Convoke creature, particularly one that is a counter spell, is very, very, very good.
Big game.
Yeah, I think it's a sweet card. I don't even know if it needs to be in something where we're trying to go super wide. Even just some type of white-based aggro can still play something like this.
Yeah.
And then just try to finish you on the key turn. And you might even just put it into play on turn 3 or something and then just try to go ham with it. Like, who knows?
Yeah, that card was just brilliant, and the different versions, the double exposure card version, the textured foil thing that they're doing is brilliant. And again, the idea that they're not sort of pulling punches is the way I would put it with a lot of the horror elements. I'm down for. I think it's brilliant.
The only thing I don't like is the black and white thing because it makes it hard to identify colors and whatever, Like when you're in the middle of the game, having to think and remember what colors things are or whatever is a little bit of a pain when we've done that previously, but
Yeah.
it does look neat.
I think they've learned from Innistrad Double Feature that you can't just grayscale and move on,
Yeah.
That it's got, like, it's not just black and white. It's got that red kind of stuff going on in the background to kind of border it and so on. That will at least help, which is nice. Moving on here, something I want to showcase, which I honestly am surprised it's never showed up before, and feel free, chat, to correct me if I am wrong. But at MagicCon Amsterdam, Alayna Danner, who is an incredible artist, fantastic person, handed out special postcards with a time slot on them to everyone in their line. So instead of wait in line, you return to their booth at the designated time to have your cards signed. Postcards handed out first come, first served basis. And it's got super cool Jeweled Lotus on the front. And on the back, it's got their schedule for hour 0 through hour 9, along with, the rules and things. But the idea of a line placeholder card, so you don't have to sit there for 5 hours, 6 hours, which does happen in real life for artists at giant shows like these, to say, look, go enjoy the con. Come back during this hour, you'll get your stuff signed, and you can go enjoy the rest of the con. I think this is brilliant, and it's not for every artist, because not every artist is going to have Alayna Danner pull, for example. But for your bigger artists that are going to have these kind of issues and concerns, your John Avons of the world, for example, this is brilliant, and it's amazing. It's till now we've seen something like this.
Hey, first off, credit to Alayna Danner for in a fairly short period of time by Magic standards, like getting herself to the point where you got those kind of problems. You know,
True.
like, so credit to her.
Absolutely.
But yeah, this is a really good system. I mean, we're reaching the point again, you know, Magic's dying or whatever, but we're reaching the point of huge numbers of people showing up to these events. Like it's realistic to think that in Vegas we might have 16,000 Magic players show up to this thing, because we had 12,000 plus in Chicago back in February, right?
Right.
So the lines are only going to be getting longer, even as they add more and more artists to get stuff signed. There's just the lines. There's a huge need. There's a huge want, right? So yeah, you're going to need something. And this is about the cleanest system. Because like you're saying, the ability for you to go and still go do other things instead of just, all right, well, I'm not going to get to the front for another 3 hours, but I have to just stand here, right? Now you can go do something, come back 10 minutes before the hour or whatever, get back in line, and you're good to go. So yeah, this is a good scenario for everybody involved.
Yeah. I mean, it's fast pass, and it's good that we finally have that. Well done. Good job to make it.
Yeah, just again, I love good ideas. This is a great idea. Take it, steal it, run with it. Don't reinvent the wheel.
Everybody go do this.
She made the wheel for us. Go enjoy it for all the artists who have issues like that, and the people who just kind of suffer. You know what I mean? Like standing around for 6 hours can often be painful. You want to go.
Hell,
to the
if nothing else,
bathroom,
it kills
you're
your feet, man.
Right? It messes with your feet. You can have you can mess your kind of whole weekend up because you had to stay in line the whole time. And I just love that.
Hey, and these artists learn from each other doing the tours and, you know, all these events, because for a while we saw a lot from Arcade Post, right? And people adopted, oh, we can put our art on dice bags and tokens and whatever. And now everybody's doing that, right? So yeah, I hope everybody picks up this stuff from Alayna for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you know, everything is a bettering process. Everything is iterative. You know, these Magic Cons that we went to are not only iterative for people like Cool Stuff, who we go and we change sort of what we do as we do each show. The artists, I think, are getting used to the idea, like, this is 10,000 people in Amsterdam, sold out show. You got to prepare for those things. And I think they prepared in a really, really great way. Moving on here, really fun bit from @AzoriusEye on Twitter. They unveiled a 4-month-long Magic project where they mainly looked through 5,000 pages of articles. And I assure you, they went through them really far back.
They went deep.
They went deep and wide. 1,602 strategy Magic articles to level up your game. The links will be in the show notes, or you can check it out at AzoriusEye on Twitter. No, I'm not calling it X. And yeah, so this was brilliant. And Ruben's on there a few times. I'm on there a few times.
You're on there 5 times. I'm on there twice. Daquan's on there once.
Hey.
Yeah, which was really surprising to me.
I wrote an article series many, many years ago about how a deck is like a car and what that means, and you know, what that could.
Do you want to guess? Whatever. Do you want to guess what year A Deck Is Like a Car came out?
Oh God,
I went back and looked, so I won't say.
This is from July 3rd.
Oh,
so today.
Oh,
2006.
Oh, I was going to say 07, so I wouldn't have been that far. Okay.
So
2006.
Those articles can vote now, and smoke cigarettes. And yeah, it's been a minute. It's one of those where I was like, damn, did I write that?
Mine's from 2009. Yours is from 2006.
Right.
Power Dragons is from 2020. So like a reasonable, recent effort.
Right.
As opposed to us who haven't done anything in a very
long time. What's crazy is to even go back and look and realize how many different sites there were.
Oh
yeah.
You know,
absolutely.
And there's still others. Like I said, like the Pojo stuff, that whole period isn't even on there. And that goes back to 05. Right. I think 05 to like 2017. So yeah, there's even more. And people have been like recommending stuff to him and pointing him towards stuff. So this is probably going to be just an ever growing project as he finds more stuff to add to it. So this is a lot of work and just like a labor of love. Yeah. And I don't even think he had like a donation box or a Patreon or anything. This is just, he just did it, which is crazy.
It's amazing.
Totally donate something.
Incredible. And a bunch of books too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, true.
It's brilliant. So kudos to them for putting that together. Obviously, it's nice to be called out in ways that you can get called out, which is fun. And also know that like some of the stuff that we did make / write all those years ago isn't necessarily just going to be in the dustbin of history or whatever. You know, like it does still kind of matter in different ways. Yeah. I think that's great.
Yeah, there's the only thing I wish, because this is definitely like strategy articles for the most part.
Right.
There are some crazy stories through the history of Magic that I would love to have seen included or something. Because like when I see Brain Burst, I think about all the crazy stuff that went down with like David Doust and like that whole thing. Like it's so unbelievable that if you try to tell those stories, like people are like, that really? Like that?
Yeah.
But just to have that somewhere so people could just read through the chronological like insanity of what that situation was would have been kind of cool. So unfortunately some of that stuff just been lost over the years at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
it is a very daunting and intimidating list. But if you are relatively new to Magic, but you've decided that this is who you are, this is a great place to bolster your education. This is graduate school, right? This is a lot. This is a lot of research and time
Oh, yeah.
and
Right.
words and effort, but this is all there. So this is a wonderful tool for anyone who's thinking, this is who I want to be. This is what I want to do. I want to know about Magic. I want to study the game at the highest level. I want to go back and read the old books. Read the old texts.
the sacred texts.
Yeah, the sacred texts. And this is a great compendium of all of that stuff.
Also, for those of you listening or watching, it does mean we're not completely full of crap. Like people thought enough of us to include us in the annals of all this other amazing writing.
Yeah.
Hey,
Listen,
you ever wonder
if-
what I wrote like 18 years ago? You can go check that out.
If my claim to fame is that I have 2 of the 1602 best Magic articles or most indelible Magic articles, obviously not best. Like the best Magic articles are like tournament recaps and
Sure.
funny bits and stuff like that.
Right.
But most indelible, longest lasting lifespan articles. I'm happy with that.
Yeah, there's levels of articles in terms of like impact culturally, between Who's the Beatdown, between Jeff Cunningham's stuff, like there's a gamut there. And it's always humbling and nice to be recognized. Moving on here to a few desperate ravings as we round out the show. The end of foil redemption is coming for Magic Online. You want to talk about an end of an era? You often, and if you don't know, if you collect a full set of anything current, recent, and standard on Magic Online, you can take those out of your account and get real Magic cards sent to your home. You have to pay a fee and some shipping costs, but that will get you a full set, foil or non-foil, to your home. Well, that's no longer going to be the case. Starting with Bloomburrow, the foil set redemption will cease, and often why this is happening isn't random. It's often because the juice isn't worth the squeeze. Somebody has to take care of this. Someone has to manage this. Someone has to ship this and make sure nothing gets messed up. Someone has to do customer service for this when people get stuff messed up or packages or damaged or whatever. And so all of that just says either not enough people are doing it or just not enough people are doing it to handle the overhead of doing it.
Thinking about it, when I've bought collections and things that have rolled through, I can't even remember the last time I've seen a foil redemption set.
Yeah.
Like I've seen some regular sets, quite a few, but like almost maybe one in the last several years. So, I mean, granted, I'm one person in a small sample size, but like when you see so many of the regular ones versus almost none of the foil ones, I have to wonder how many of those are actually being redeemed.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to know the numbers. We'll never know the numbers, but also I don't know how big of a deal this is. I know for the people who I know who used to do a ton of redeeming sets for like cash payout,
Right.
they never interacted with foils.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So-
they at one point I think Wizards recognized that there was an amount of churn of people getting complete sets, pulling complete sets out, getting sent to their house, and then pulling those and then selling those for or flipping those for profit. Where they started adding more charges to those sets from being redeemed and so on. And this is kind of sort of another, I think, extension of that. Like, look, we'll still give you the redeemable sets, but we're only going to do this because probably there's a very low volume, and B, you're kind of lucky we're still doing this anyway, honestly. And the only time I've ever seen a foil redemption set, it was when Wizards gave me one in like 2019 or something at a
There you go.
Con event or whatever.
But there you go. Like,
so-
I don't
Right.
see very many. You don't see very many. Like we've interacted with a ton of people in collections or whatever. So like you have to wonder how many are out there, and
Right.
they have to have them available in case somebody decides they want to redeem them, they have to be able. I'm sure there's a minimum number they feel they have to print, collate, put on hand, seal them up, and just have them. But let's say you're making a couple hundred available and only 2 are being redeemed. Like, is that worth the cost every set?
Right. And then you got a bunch of stuff left over, and you got to
Yep.
handle that. And then, like, what do you do next time? Do you make 10, and then all of a sudden there's 25 redemptions, and then that's a problem? You know what I mean? All those things you just don't know, and you have to prepare for it to printers in some variety, and it's a whole kind of mess in that regard. They also note here that they're going to change the future of premium digital foils in terms of how they look and or work on the client, which then kind of reminds you that this client is very old. This client is older by years than the articles that we just talked about having me posted on that big document.
Yep.
So it comes with a lot of sort of cruft, a lot of long-term, here's the different ways we've done it. Can we make them look interesting and cool and unique? They show a few examples of the way they've tried to change the look of digital cards on the client. And yeah, it's kind of a wild change, but changes are still afoot for a program that came out in 2002. So let's move on here. There was a bit about the DMCA breakup or roundup thing. I'd rather take a look at this bit about Windswept Heath, because I thought it was neat. This came out of nowhere. This is some of the most inside baseball you'll ever see, which I think is brilliant. Of the fact that, like, wait a minute, Rob Alexander did all of the fetch lands but one of them. Why is that? Why did Anthony S. Waters do Windswept Heath? And the pre-modern folks, the people who play pre-modern, started to kind of look into where this came from and how there is a Plains artwork from Rob Alexander that technically could be Windswept Heath, if you look at it that way, but it wasn't. It was Plains. And if you look at Daru Encampment, that was originally, that was from Anthony S. Waters. But the actual card itself was not this makeup, and you kind of learned that, like, yeah, they swapped the art. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, they do this every once in a while. The famous example that I can think of was there was a 3 art swap that included Ivory Charm among other arts from Visions, and those got swapped 3 ways around. And yeah, this makes perfect sense. I think I remembered reading something about this like 15 years ago that they talked about this art swap.
Yeah, there actually was a old archive, a web archive bit that they pulled up here from the Wizards website that talked about Windswept Heath and mentioned that it was changed at one point. And so,
yeah, which is funny because as you were telling the story, I literally had the thought of, like, didn't we know this?
Yeah, I thought we knew this.
This is kind of like, we knew it, but we also didn't really talk about it.
We also didn't look at it. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where you can kind of kick up and be like, hey, wait, that was really cool. And everyone kind of forgot about it. And it's kind of a weird thing. And it's a little inside baseball, but it's something that we can look at and go like, yeah, that's rad. And we know that. And we recognize that. And I think that is super, super cool.
Neat.
And with that, we turn the corner to the finisher. U.S. track and field stars Noah Lyles and Joe Fahn were spotted geeking out at the Olympic trials earlier this week, and Lyles even stepped up his nerd street cred, bringing both Blue Eyes White Dragon and all 5 pieces of Exodia to his race. What cards would you bring to your Olympic tryouts to get the right vibes, Ruben?
Well, there's only one sport I might have had a shot of being good at, and that is soccer. Not anymore, obviously, but back in the day, I could have seen slipping in a copy of Jester's Cap into my shin guard to try to get a hat trick.
Ooh.
Power
Dragon?
Well, I like the triple jump, and it lines up pretty well with Urza's Mine, Tower, Power Plant, obviously. But you can put that in your sock. And then with it being such a unique sport and you have unique play patterns, of course, with the popularity of Tron and the power of triple jumps, you both have legs.
They do. They definitely have legs. Look, I love watching water sports, diving, swimming, water polo, you name it, I like it. Water sports are to Summer Olympics as big creatures are to Magic for me because they are the absolute coolest. So I put Nadu in my trunks because I'd be guaranteed to win the event until I got banned soon after.
Yeah.
Hey,
You,
performance enhancement.
Demonstrate a
Too
loop.
good. Demonstrate a loop. I love it.
That's kind of what swimming is on the
Yeah.
longer distances. It's a bunch of loops.
See, there you go. And that ends another live episode of Magic Mics. Thanks for joining us here to discuss all things Magic. Thank you, Power Dragon.
Hey, good to be here. Everybody, don't forget, use your codes, leave us good reviews and all that. And we actually made it through all that news.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ruben.
And a full hour. Hey, two thoughts. Send good vibes out in the world in two different ways. One is, if you are on X, tell Kai what he means to you, Kai Budde. At him and say, here's how you inspired me. And two, tell someone in your life who you might not talk to constantly, who you might not see all the time, and tell them how they positively impacted your life. Because, you know, if the announcement that we got at the Pro Tour tells me anything, it's that you need to tell people how much they mean to you, and to honor people while they're alive. And, you know, everyone feels good when they're complimented, when they end up on best 1600 lists, and when they're covered on news shows. And anytime anyone has any amount of recognition, it feels good. So tell somebody in your life what they mean to you. And I appreciate you guys for being my co-hosts and for being my friends.
Say, Ruben, you're one of the good ones, buddy.
Thanks.
And I appreciate that. All right, let's move on here to our final slide, rather, our power slide.
Our power slide.
I want to thank our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com. Use promo code MagicMics. Our co-sponsor, Mana Traders, my co-host, Power Dragon, and Ruben Bressler, you guys for watching and listening, and hope you support us at patreon.com/MagicMics. Please follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, subscribe to everything social that tells people we exist. Catch us on our exclusive member Discord, live on twitch.tv at MagicMics, live or taped on our YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter at MagicMicsCast and on TikTok at MagicMicsCast, or join us here next week. Same time, same place for another episode of Magic Mics. Good night, everybody.